You've probably heard the saying, family comes first. But what happens when the very people who are supposed to protect you become the ones you need protection from? Today, I'm going to tell you a story. It's not my story, but it's one that hit me hard. The story of my friend, Tori Fairfax. This isn't just about money. It's about trust, broken promises, and the moment you realize that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself even when it means standing against your own blood. When Tori pulled out a single piece of paper, everything changed. Let's get into it. My name is Tori Fairfax, and as of 3 weeks ago, my entire understanding of what family means shattered into a million pieces. I'm 34 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life being the rock, the reliable one, the daughter who never caused trouble. But all that changed the day my parents sold our family home in Portland for a staggering $1.8 million. That number alone would be life-changing for most people, but for me it was a gut punch. Because 12 years earlier, I had invested $200,000 of my own money into that very house. That money wasn't just savings. It was my entire inheritance from my grandmother, a woman who loved me fiercely and wanted to secure my future. When the sale went through, I expected to finally see a return on that investment, a return that was promised to me in writing. Instead, my parents handed every single dollar from the sale to my older sister, Meredith. Not a penny came my way. When I finally found the courage to ask my mother about my share, her response wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was a cold, dismissive command. Just be happy for your sister's new start. She needs this more than you do. $200,000. Gone. Just like that. My grandmother's final gift to me vanished into my sister's bank account. For a moment, I was paralyzed by the betrayal. But then, a steely calm settled over me. Because they had forgotten one crucial detail. I keep paperwork. I'm an accountant by trade and by nature. In a safety deposit box, I had kept the original, signed agreement from August 2012. A simple, one-page document where my parents promised me 40% of the home's value upon its eventual sale. They'd signed it to humor their 22-year-old daughter, never imagining it would come back to haunt them. To them, it was just family paperwork. Who sues their own family, right? I decided I would. The day after that devastating conversation with my mother, I made one phone call to a real estate attorney. 1 hour later, my phone buzzed with a call from the family's real estate agent. Her voice a mixture of confusion and urgency. Tori? I need to talk to you. The sale is frozen. There's a legal claim on the property. Your parents, they are not handling this well. The freeze was just the beginning. The battle lines were drawn. But to truly understand how a family gets to this point, where a daughter has to legally force her parents to honor their word, you have to understand the past. You have to go back to the beginning, to the summer of 2012. I was 22, fresh out of college with an accounting degree, my whole future ahead of me, and still clinging to the belief that family would never consciously choose to hurt you. That was the last summer I was that naive. To understand the depth of the betrayal, you need to understand my family dynamic. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, the younger of 2 daughters. My sister, Meredith, is 4 years older and, from as far back as I can remember, occupied a different space in our family universe. Meredith was the one who struggled. School was hard, college was a maze of changed majors and dropped classes, and life seemed to throw one crisis after her way. She married Kevin, a car salesman, at 24, and soon after came 2 kids. With every stumble, her narrative in our family solidified. Meredith needed help. I took a different path. I was the quiet, focused one. I graduated summa cum laude with my accounting degree, got hired by the reputable firm of Morrison and Caldwell right out of Portland State, and built my career one meticulous spreadsheet at a time. I didn't need rescuing. I was stable. And in my family's eyes, that stability became a resource to be tapped. The requests started small not long after I began my job. Tori, Meredith's car broke down. Can you cover the repair? Just this once. Tori, your sister has an unexpected medical bill. You're doing so well. Can you help? Tori, they need marriage counseling. It's so expensive. It was never just once. It was a constant, quiet drain. I became the family's unofficial emergency fund. Birthday checks from me would go toward their credit card debt. Loans were given with a familial smile and never mentioned again. If I ever hesitated, my mother had a ready-made mantra. Tori, you're the one with the ability. Your sister doesn't have that. We have to help her. For years, I wore that line like a badge of honor. It felt like a recognition of my competence. It took me well into my 30s to realize it wasn't a compliment. It was a justification. A way to morally outsource the cost of Meredith's chaos onto my shoulders. I once tallied it up. Over a decade, I had loaned my family, almost exclusively Meredith, over $40,000 that I never saw again. That number didn't include the big one, the life-changing sum. That story starts and ends with my grandmother. My grandmother, Eleanor Mitchell, was my sanctuary. She was sharp, witty, and had lived a full, resilient life. While Meredith visited sporadically, maybe on Christmas and her birthday, I drove to her assisted living facility in Lake Oswego every single Sunday during college. We'd play Scrabble, watch old black and white films, and talk for hours. She knew my dreams, my work ethic, my heart. She also saw the family dynamic with clear eyes. When she passed in March 2012 at 87, her will was simple and unambiguous. To my granddaughter, Tori in Fairfax, I leave the sum of $200,000 so that she may have a solid financial foundation for her future. That was it. Clear, specific, and intentional. Meredith received a beautiful china set. My mother got antique jewelry. My father, the grandfather clock. The reading of the will felt like a seismic shift in our living room. My mother's face contorted with a hurt that quickly curdled into anger, directed at me. At the funeral reception, she pulled me aside, her voice a venomous whisper. You must have manipulated her in her final days. She wasn't in her right mind. She always loved Meredith more. The accusation stole my breath. It wasn't true. Grandma Eleanor loved the granddaughter who showed up. It was as simple and as profound as that. That $200,000 was more than money. It was my grandmother's vote of confidence. Her armor for me in a world she knew could be unfair. She wanted me to have a foundation. Little did she know, that very foundation was about to be used as bricks in someone else's house. Just 2 months after the inheritance hit my account, my parents presented me with what they called a wonderful opportunity. I should have heard the alarm bells. But I was 22 and they were my parents. I still trusted them. They sat me down in the living room of the very house in question. The family home, bought in 1995, still had a mortgage of about $120,000. The house was valued around $500,000 at the time. Their pitch was this. If I used my $200,000 inheritance to pay off the bulk of the mortgage and fund some renovations, I would own a 40% stake in the home. Think of it as an investment in your future and in your family, my father said. Real estate always appreciates. My mother leaned in, appealing to my guilt. It's what Grandma Eleanor would have wanted. For you to help your family. I was hesitant. This was my entire safety net. Seeing my doubt, my mother's expression hardened. Don't you trust us, Tori? We're your parents. That line, the emotional leverage, worked. But my best friend Claire, the voice of reason, urged me. At least get it in writing. Anything. So I asked. My parents laughed, a little exasperated. Fine, my mother said, rolling her eyes. If you want to be so professional about it. My father typed up a one-page agreement on his computer. It stated plainly that in exchange for my $200,000 contribution, I owned 40% of the property, to be repaid upon its sale or transfer. They both signed it. I dated it August 15, 2012. I took that original to my safety deposit box at Wells Fargo. For 12 years, I paid $75 annually to rent that box. It was the best investment I ever made. That single sheet of paper, flimsy as it seemed, was the thread I would eventually pull to unravel their entire plan. But for over a decade, it just sat there, while I continued to be the reliable daughter, and the slow, steady drain on my life continued. For 12 years, life moved forward. I built my career at Morrison & Caldwell, climbing from junior accountant to senior financial analyst, earning my CPA license. I lived in a modest apartment in Portland's Pearl District, saved for retirement, and followed every rule. I was doing everything right. Meanwhile, Meredith's life followed its familiar turbulent pattern. Her marriage to Kevin grew strained, and the calls for help continued. My parents' requests evolved from helping Meredith to maintaining the house I now partly owned, or so I believed. The roof needs repairs, Tori. Can you chip in $8,000? It's an investment in your asset. The HVAC system is failing. Another $12,000 would fix it. Think of it as protecting your share. Property taxes are due and it's tight this year. $5,000 would really help us out. Each request was framed as a logical extension of our agreement, a further investment. I kept a rough mental ledger. Over those 12 years, I funneled another $35,000 into that house, on top of the original $200,000. The memos on the bank transfers said things like home repair and family support. There was no new paperwork, just trust and guilt. By 2024, I was 34. I owned my car and had a healthy retirement account, but no property, no real tangible assets. I had poured nearly $250,000 into my family's stability. Then, the catalyst. Meredith's marriage finally imploded. Kevin left her for someone else. The house was in his name, so Meredith was left with her children, her clothes, and nothing else. She moved back in with our parents. Overnight, every family conversation revolved around a single mission. How do we save Meredith? In September 2024, my mother called me with what she called wonderful news. They were selling the family home. The Portland market was booming, and they had a buyer lined up. I felt a surge of anticipation. Finally, after all the years, all the money, all the quiet support, my investment was about to bear fruit. I did the math instantly. 40% of the expected sale price would be a significant sum, a life-changing return that would finally allow me to buy my own home, my own future. On October 15th, the call came. My mother's voice was giddy. We sold it, Tori. $1.8 million. Can you believe it? My mind raced. 40% of $1.8 million is $720,000. My heart pounded with a mix of vindication and excitement. That's amazing, Mom. So, when do we handle the paperwork for the proceeds? Her next sentence stopped time. We've decided to give it all to Meredith. The silence on my end was absolute. She plowed ahead, her tone dripping with performative benevolence. She needs it more than anyone, honey. She lost everything. This will give her a down payment, a fresh start, a new life. Mom, the word was a croak. What about my share? The $200,000? The agreement. The pause that followed was different. It was cold. When she spoke again, the warmth was gone, replaced by a dismissive finality I'd never heard directed at me. Tori, that was your contribution to the family. That was you helping us. You've done so well for yourself. You have your career, your apartment. Meredith has nothing. Be happy for your sister. But we had an agreement. Dad typed it. You both signed it. I could hear the desperate plea in my own voice. She actually laughed. A short, bitter sound. That was just family paperwork, Tori. Nobody is going to hold you to that. We're family, not business partners. And then she delivered the final blow, the command that snapped something inside me. Be happy for your sister. She's getting a second chance. That's what matters. The line went dead. I sat at my desk for what felt like an eternity, the hum of the office fading into a silent roar. Every slight, every loan, every time I swallowed my own needs because Tori can handle it flashed before me. The $200,000 from my grandmother, my mother's seething resentment over it, the signed promise, the decades of being the reliable one. All of it crystallized into one cold, hard truth. My family saw me not as a daughter with rights, but as a resource to be managed and then discarded when my utility was spent. That night, the reliable Tori Fairfax, the one who always bent, ceased to exist. Part 5. The Reckoning, Lawyers and Frozen Funds. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the conversation until anger replaced the numbness. At 6 a.m., I called my best friend, Claire. She listened, and her fury was immediate and validating. Tori, please tell me you kept that agreement. When I confirmed I had, her advice was swift. You need a lawyer. Today. When is the closing? I checked the email my mother had forwarded weeks earlier, back when she pretended I was part of this. Closing was set for October 20th, just 5 days away. The fear was paralyzing. They're my family? I whispered, already knowing how weak it sounded. What family steals $200,000 from their daughter and pretends it never happened? Claire shot back. If a stranger did this, you'd call the police. Why do they get a pass? She was right. That afternoon, I sat in the downtown office of Nathan Webb, a real estate attorney with a calm demeanor and sharp eyes. I handed him the trio of documents: the 2012 agreement, the bank statement showing the $200,000 transfer, and my grandmother's will. He read them carefully. Ms. Fairfax, he said finally, this is a binding contract under Oregon law. It's not fancy, but it's enforceable. Family paperwork is not a legal defense. He laid out my options. A formal demand letter which would give them time to prepare a fight, or intervening directly at the closing. If you want certainty and speed, Nathan advised, you appear at the closing with me. The title company cannot proceed with a sale if there's a legitimate, documented ownership dispute. It forces the issue into the open, immediately. I thought of my mother's cold voice. Be happy for your sister. I'll be there, I said, my own voice surprising me with its steadiness. Nathan moved quickly. He drafted a notice to Lakewood Realty, the selling agent, informing them of a potential ownership claim on the property, without naming me yet. This put them on legal notice. As predicted, the agent, Jennifer Walsh, contacted my parents. They were confused, then furious, but still had no idea the claim was mine. The day before the closing, my mother called, her voice saccharine. They were planning a housewarming party for Meredith after the sale. You'll come, won't you? Meredith wants to thank you for always being there for her. The audacity took my breath away. She was thanking me in advance for funding her new life with my stolen inheritance. I'll try, I said flatly. That same day, under the guise of picking up old photos, I went to the house. Only Meredith was there. Through the thin wall, I heard her on the phone. No, Tori won't make trouble. She's too nice for that. Mom said she put in some money years ago, but that was ancient history. I need this more. What does Tori have to spend money on anyway? Her boring job, her apartment. She'll understand. She always understands. I left, shaking. The final thread of doubt was severed. She knew. She knew, and she had decided my needs were irrelevant. The understanding one was done understanding. October 20th, 10 a.m. Lakewood Realty's sleek downtown office. I wore a sharp navy blazer and slacks, armor for the battle ahead. From a side conference room, Nathan and I watched them arrive. My parents, dressed for a celebration. Meredith, glowing with anticipation. The buyers, an older couple. Their lawyer, the escrow officer. They settled in the main room. Meredith spotted me. Tori? What are you doing here? I came to support the family, I said, my voice even. This is my attorney, Nathan Webb. Confusion turned to alarm on my parents' faces. The real estate agent, Jennifer Walsh, cleared her throat nervously. Before we begin, we need to address something. We've received formal notice of a potential ownership dispute on this property. My mother's laugh was brittle. That's absurd. The house is in our names. Mom, I said, cutting through the tension. You know what this is about. Nathan stood, commanding the room. He placed copies of the agreement on the table, sliding them toward everyone. My client, Tori Fairfax, contributed $200,000 to this property in 2012 under a signed agreement granting her a 40% ownership stake, payable upon sale. We have the original document, signed by both Richard and Diane Fairfax, and bank records confirming the transfer. The blood drained from my father's face as he looked at the paper he'd typed. My mother's copy lay untouched. The buyer, David, pushed back from the table. We're not comfortable proceeding with this unresolved. Jennifer Walsh agreed. We can't close with an active dispute. The sale is paused. My mother's composure shattered. She turned on me, her voice trembling with rage. You're doing this for money? To your own family? After everything we've done for you? You tried to give my money away? I replied, my calm contrasting her fury. I'm asking for what you legally promised me. Meredith burst into tears. What about my kids? My fresh start? You have $1.8 million, minus my client's share, Nathan stated calmly. That is still a substantial fresh start. The buyers left. The closing was frozen. In the aftermath, my family circled me with a mix of betrayal and venom. You've ruined everything, my mother spat. I hope you're happy. I'm not happy, I said quietly, gathering my things. But I'm not being stolen from anymore. In the hours and days that followed, the pressure mounted. The buyers threatened to walk away and sue for their earnest money if the dispute wasn't resolved quickly. My parents' lawyer, once consulted, told them the blunt truth. They would almost certainly lose in court. The document was valid. Their failure to disclose the claim on the seller's disclosure only compounded their legal risk. The guilt offensive from my mother was relentless. Angry calls, tearful appeals, even threats to turn the entire extended family against me. But for the first time I had an unshakable counter. The truth on paper. When she threatened to tell everyone, I simply said, tell them, and I'll send them all a copy of the agreement you signed. Unexpectedly, my father called. His voice was heavy with regret. I'm a coward, Tori, he admitted. I've spent my marriage taking the easy path, and I let you pay the price. I signed that paper. I remember. I'll make sure you get your money. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Even Meredith reached out, her tone different. Exhausted, stripped of pretense. Mom never told me it was $200,000, she claimed. Maybe I didn't want to know. It was easier not to. Partial truth, perhaps, but an admission nonetheless. Faced with legal and financial ruin, my parents finally capitulated. In a tense meeting with both attorneys, they agreed to the settlement. $720,000 to be transferred to me from the sale proceeds upon closing, in exchange for a full release. My father verbally acknowledged they were wrong. My mother only muttered a terse, "Fine, it was yours." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. The sale finally closed on October 28th. I wasn't there. 3 days later, the notification appeared on my phone. A deposit of $720,000. My grandmother's foundation, restored. The money was life-changing, but the real transformation was internal. I bought a condo, my own space, my own deed. I created a scholarship in my grandmother's name, turning her gift into a legacy for others. I started therapy to unpack a lifetime of being the responsible one. My family relationships are now different. Strained, distant, but honest. My mother and I speak superficially. My father tries harder. Meredith, ironically, has started to build her own life with her own money, and we have had the first real conversations in years. That framed 2012 agreement hangs on my wall now. It's not a trophy of victory, but a reminder. A reminder that love shouldn't require self-erasure. That boundaries aren't disloyalty. That sometimes the most familial thing you can do is insist on being treated with respect. So, if you take anything from my story, let it be this: document promises even with family. Your kindness should not be your vulnerability. And you are worth fighting for, even if the people you have to fight are the ones who taught you your name. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the first, and most important, step toward building a life that is truly your own. The legal victory was clean, but the emotional aftermath was a messy, unfolding storm. Winning in a conference room didn't automatically heal 3 decades of dynamic. The $720,000 hit my account, but a heavier silence settled over my family. For weeks, my phone was a monument to guilt. My mother's calls dwindled from furious tirades to cold, clipped check-ins. Just making sure you got your money, she'd say, the words dripping with unspoken accusation. My father tried bridging the gap with awkward texts about the weather or an article he'd read. Meredith was radio silent. But the most surprising development wasn't within my immediate family. It was within the extended one. Remember my mother's threat to tell everyone? She did. She called aunts, uncles, cousins, anyone who would listen, spinning a tale of a greedy, ungrateful daughter who had sued her own parents out of their home sale proceeds. For a few days, I braced for a wave of judgment. It never came. Instead, something else happened. My Aunt Linda, my mother's own sister, was the first to call me directly. Her voice was warm, steady, and utterly unsurprised. Tori, honey, I got an earful from your mother. Then I got your email with the documents. I believe you, she sighed, a sound heavy with history. Your mother has a pattern. When your grandmother's estate was settled, she tried to claim things that weren't hers. Said it was unfair you got the cash. I had to threaten legal action myself back then to make her back down. She never told you that, did she? She hadn't. This revelation was a seismic shift. For years, I'd felt like I was going crazy, the only one who could see the manipulation. To learn that others had seen it, had fought it, was profoundly validating. I wasn't the villain. I was just the latest target in a long-standing pattern. Then came a message from Uncle Robert, my father's brother. Your dad called, asking me to talk sense into you. I told him I'd seen the agreement, and the only person who needed sense was him for signing it and then forgetting it. His support was blunt and unwavering. Even cousins I barely knew reached out via social media. Heard about the family drama. For what it's worth. My mom always said you were the only one in that house with a head on your shoulders. My mother's narrative had backfired spectacularly. By trying to control the story, she had forced me to share the evidence. And the evidence was incontrovertible. The signed agreement, the bank transfer, the clarity of it all cut through years of family fog. People weren't siding with me out of pity. They were siding with the facts. For the first time, I wasn't alone in seeing the truth. The family shield my parents had hidden behind had cracks, and everyone was looking through them. This period taught me a crucial lesson. In a dysfunctional family system, the first person to break the silence and present documented truth often sets others free. My stand wasn't just about my money. It inadvertently gave permission to others to acknowledge what they'd always quietly known. The weight of being the reliable one began to lift, shared now by a chorus of voices saying, "We see you. You were right." I listened, saying nothing. She kept saying, "She's just like Eleanor. Stubborn. Keeping records." And it hit me, Tori. Grandma Eleanor left you that money because you were like her. Reliable. Solid. She trusted you with it. And Mom, I think she resented that trust. She resented that Grandma saw in you what she couldn't force into me. This was an insight I'd never considered. My mother's betrayal wasn't just about favoritism for Meredith. It was also about a deep-seated rivalry with her own mother, played out through me and my inheritance. I'm not saying it to excuse her, Meredith hurried to add. Or me. I heard what I said that day in the house. I knew you'd contributed. I let myself believe it was a gift because it was easier. Because if it wasn't a gift, then I was taking something, and I didn't want to be someone who took from my sister. Her voice broke. But I was. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because you sued, but because I made you have to. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a real one. It acknowledged complicity, not just consequence. We talked for an hour that night. It was the first honest conversation we'd had as adults, without parents in the middle, without roles to play, the struggling one and the savior. We were just two sisters, both a little broken, trying to figure out how to build something real from the rubble. That conversation didn't magically fix everything. But it built a bridge, a shaky, new one, but a bridge nonetheless. It proved that relationships could change, that people could wake up, even if it took a legal earthquake to rouse them. My fight hadn't just secured my future. It had, ironically, given Meredith the push to finally start building her own, on her own terms, with her own hands. And in a way, that felt like a victory for both of us. With the financial dust settled and the emotional tremors beginning to subside, I faced a new, unfamiliar reality. Peace. The constant low-grade anxiety of being the family's backup plan was gone. The silence in my life was no longer heavy with expectation. It was filled with possibility. The first thing I did wasn't extravagant. I sat down with a fee-only financial planner. That $720,000 wasn't just a windfall. It was my grandmother's legacy and my restored foundation. We built a plan. A sizable down payment for a home of my own. A robust boost to my retirement accounts. A carefully invested nest egg. And, as I'd promised myself, $50,000 to establish the Eleanor Mitchell Foundation for First-Generation College Women at the Portland Community Foundation. When the foundation representative asked why, I simply said, "My grandmother wanted me to have a solid start. Now I can pass that start on." It was the full-circle moment my grandmother deserved. I found a condo in the Alberta Arts District. It wasn't the sprawling family home I'd invested in. It was smaller, sunlit, with hardwood floors and a view of the street. The day I signed the deed, I felt a quiet pride I'd never known. This wasn't a gift, a loan, or an investment in someone else's stability. It was mine. I had earned it, fought for it, and now I owned it free and clear. Professionally, a shift occurred. For years, I'd been the reliable workhorse at Morrison and Caldwell, hesitant to ask for more. One morning, I walked into my manager's office and laid out my accomplishments, my value, and my request for a promotion and a raise that reflected it. The old Tori would have waited to be noticed. The new Tori understood her worth. I got the promotion. Therapy with Dr. Brennan became my anchor. We unpacked it all, the childhood patterns, the parentification, the guilt that felt like a second skin. "You're not grieving the family you have," she said one session. "You're grieving the family you wished you had. The one where fairness existed, and your reliability was cherished, not exploited." Letting go of that wish was the hardest part, but also the most liberating. My relationship with my parents entered a state of cautious, low-contact détente. My mother calls on birthdays and major holidays. The conversations are a masterclass in surface-level civility. She talks about her garden, a book she's reading. I talk about work, my condo. The vast canyon of what happened lies between us, unmentioned. It's not forgiveness, and it's not warm. But it is a boundary, and for now that's enough. My father sends me articles about Portland history or the accounting industry with little notes. "Thought of you." This is language of care, and I've learned to accept it for what it is. And Meredith? We're navigating a new map. She moved into her Beaverton house. The kids share a room. She's proud of her budget, of fixing a leaky faucet herself. We meet for coffee sometimes without the kids. The conversations are real. She talks about the stress of single parenting, the odd joy of financial independence. I listen. Sometimes, she still slips into old patterns, a hint of "you're so lucky to have your career." But now I can gently deflect it without anger. We've both got our paths, Mare. Yours is just noisier right now. And she'll laugh, a genuine sound. It's progress, fragile and slow, but it's built on truth, not obligation. It's a rainy Tuesday evening in Portland as I finish this story. I'm sitting in my living room, the soft glow of a lamp illuminating the framed 2012 agreement on my wall. That single page, with its simple typing and 2 familiar signatures, is no longer a symbol of betrayal. It's a testament to my younger self who had the instinct to ask for proof. A testament to the power of a promise, even when the people who made it try to break it. People ask me, was it worth it? All the drama, the stress, the family fallout. My answer is always the same: absolutely. Not because of the money, though financial security is a profound gift. It was worth it for the lesson that found its way into my bones. I am not an option. I am a party to an agreement. My love is not a currency to be spent on other people's debts. My grandmother, Eleanor Mitchell, did more than leave me $200,000. She left me a mirror. In her clear-eyed decision, she showed me my own strength, my own worth, long before I could see it myself. The legal fight was just me finally aligning my reality with her vision. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, the reliable one, the giver, the one who is silently funding other people's lives while your own dreams sit on hold, hear this: your kindness is not a weakness. Your reliability is not an invitation to be used. It is okay to say no. It is essential to have proof. It is necessary at times to fight for yourself, even if the battle is with the people who taught you how to walk. Family should be your sanctuary, not your liability. If it has become the latter, you have the right to build your own walls, not to shut people out, but to define where you end and they begin. That act of definition isn't selfish. It's the first, most sacred step toward building a life that is authentically, unapologetically your own. My story doesn't have a fairy tale ending. My family isn't magically healed. But it has something better: honesty. I have my home, my peace, my self-respect, and the knowledge that I honored both my grandmother's wish and my own right to exist as a full person, not just a supporting character in someone else's story. That is the real inheritance, and no one can ever take it away from me.